Hello, everyone. I hope you all know my name is Josh. I am the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee, and I want to thank you all for attending today. Today, we're going to have a presentation from Ella Harris, who's the Community Health Project Coordinator at the Greater Lowell Health Alliance. Ella is a passionate public health professional and a recent graduate of the University of Massachusetts Lowell, where she earned her BS in public health with a minor in business. At the Greater Lowell Health Alliance, she leads innovative initiatives focused on inclusive health programming and mental health advocacy for marginalized populations. In this session, she's going to talk about the Pride Playbook, which is a dynamic toolkit developed to center the LGBTQ plus mental health and community building, not only during Pride Month, but all year long. And I encourage everyone to ask questions at the end of this session. There'll be plenty of time for that. And otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Ella. So welcome, Ella.
Thank you. For some reason, it's not letting my camera turn on. But hopefully this is a forgiving crowd. Thank you for bearing with me. Where is the presentation? There we go. All right. Sorry that I can't show you guys my face, but I'm very excited to chat with you all today. If at any point you can't hear me or something's not working with the slides, please let me know. Happy Thursday. I am so grateful to have this opportunity today to create some space and kickstart a meaningful conversation about the LGBTQ plus community. Thank you, Josh, for the introduction. My name is Ella Harris. I work at the Greater Lowell Health Alliance as a community health project coordinator. And over the past few months, I have dedicated a lot of time in meaningful work for the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm delighted to share it with you all today. So I will give us a little elevator spiel on who the GLHA is, if you guys are not familiar with it. I'll go over a little bit of my background and why the LGBTQ population is so important to me. I will dig into some LGBTQ plus data, and then we will talk about some main points of conversation, including intergenerational connection, community and mental health, and then I'll finally dig into the project that I worked on for the past few months. So for those who are not familiar, the Greater Lowell Health Alliance brings together a wide range of community organizations within Greater Lowell. We all work towards one shared goal, which is improving the health and well-being of everyone in the Greater Lowell area, and ensuring that we eliminate health inequities, health disparities, making sure no one's left behind. And our role is to basically bring the community together and define and identify top health priorities and figure out how we can address them collectively. And one of the ways we do this is by leading the Community Health Needs Assessment, or the CHNA, which hospitals are required to complete every 3 years. And this assessment is a big undertaking. It's basically, Greater Lowell Health Alliance has taken the lead on both data collection, reporting, and writing. We collected data between November 2024 and April 2025. We hosted focus groups, interviews, and the final report will be published in the fall. Following the CHNA, Community Health Needs Assessment, is the Community Health Improvement Plan, or the CHIP, which is a long-term community-wide effort to take what we've learned through the assessment and basically turn it into an action plan. This CHIP also guides our 6 health-focused task forces. Our task forces are substance use and prevention, behavioral health, maternal child health, wellness and chronic disease, and health equity. Everybody is also open to join one of our task forces. They're entirely volunteer driven, and it's just a bunch of passionate community members who take time outside of their regular jobs to advance our CHIP goals. And the reason why I'm talking to you guys today about Pride and LGBTQ plus populations is because the Greater Lowell Health Alliance is the co-sponsor, co-host, co-organizer of the Greater Lowell Pride Festival, and which inspired me to write the Pride Playbook, which will be diving more into greater detail in later slides. So just a quick blurb about me. My name is Ella Harris. My pronouns are she, her. I, like Josh said, graduated from UMass Lowell with my BS in public health and a minor in business. I am a part of the LGBTQ plus community, which is why it was so important for me to develop the Pride Playbook and also the brand new The All Are Welcome initiative. I also spearheaded the qualitative data collection phase for the community health needs assessment, ran some focus groups, some interviews, and I'll be sharing quite a bunch of insight of these focus groups with you guys today. So before I kickstart, you guys are seeing my slide transitions, okay? I can't see you.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
It looks good on
Okay.
our end.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. So, like I said, data collection phase for the CHNA is now complete. And we've officially moved into the next stage, which is basically analyzing all the results. And I'm really excited to share some of these data sets with you guys. Our data guru, data expert, her name's Hannah Tello. She pulled together some specific sets to the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm excited to give you a sneak peek. For a little bit of background, we collected data on key health concerns, barriers to accessing care, special populations. And for today's presentation, I'm going to really focus in and help you guys take a close-up look at mental health data, specifically within the LGBTQ plus population. So we received, I believe, about 3,200 community survey responses. And of those responses, 235 came from the LGBTQ plus population. We distributed surveys last year at Lowell Pride, which really helped us get this high number. And just a quick kind of note before we kick into the data is proportionally reflective of the Greater Lowell community. The results only represent those of LGBTQ plus identities who participated in the survey and not the entire LGBTQ plus population in our region. Within this group, we saw a broad range of different identities. The largest representation was bisexual, followed up with lesbian, gay, pansexual, queer, and asexual individuals. So let's take a little closer look. Among LGBTQ plus survey respondents, about 27% shared that their overall mental health is either a little or a lot worse compared to last year. When it comes to substance use, just under half of the individuals reported that their relationship with substances has stayed about the same over the past year. There's a bit of more encouraging news. Less than 10% said that their relationships with family and friends have gotten significantly worse, which suggests that social support has remained relatively stable for many in the community. I think it's also important to note that a lot of the data collection happened in last June. We have some more recent focus group data that does tell a different story. So we then asked the respondents about the most important or concerning issues that they face. The top 5 that they said were very clear and telling. At the top was cost of living, followed closely by mental health. Third was cost of and access to health care. Housing was fourth, and to finish it off was nutrition and food access. So you might be saying these aren't really health issues, right? It's more explaining the social determinants of health that are the root causes of some health issues. And both in the data and the stories people have shared is that there's a strong connection between these issues, like cost of living, healthcare access, housing, food security. They aren't just background factors. They really do have an influence on mental health outcomes and overall well-being. And these challenges, they don't just exist by themselves. I think that they really do intersect in different ways that can make it even harder for people, especially in the LGBTQ plus population, to stay healthy and stay mentally healthy and get the care and support that they need. When we asked LGBTQ plus survey respondents which populations they believe should be prioritized, the top 5 were people experiencing homelessness, older adults, transgender people, the broader LGBTQ community, and people with low incomes. This was also prevalent across all survey responses, not just from LGBTQ participants. the top issues identified for the coming years was really addressing socioeconomic barriers that make it hard for people to access healthcare. And these do include cost of living, cost of care, housing insecurity, difficulty navigating the healthcare system, and an individual's personal capacity for care seeking. And it's really no surprise that these issues rose to the top. The LGBTQ plus community in particular knows how firsthand these deep barriers affect their daily life, and the data clearly reflects this reality. It's also something that many of us, me, you, professionals in the field, community members, witness, experience every day. And one of the survey questions asked whether respondents had been affected by mental health issues personally, or if someone that they know has. And among LGBTQ respondents, the answer was definitely overwhelmingly yes. In fact, over about half shared that both they and someone they know have been impacted. Specifically, about 59% of LGBTQ plus survey participants said that they have been personally affected by these challenges. And these numbers are definitely significant. While they are just a percentage and a number, they do reflect real life experiences that people are living and underscores the urgent need for accessible and affirming mental health support. So what I'm really excited to share with you guys today that really did inspire this project I've been working on is the findings that I received from hosting focus groups with a couple LGBTQ plus groups. And the specific ones that I'm going to point out today are from older adult groups because it's just really interesting, the stories. Although I can't say exactly where, what town, we have to keep it anonymous, I can give some insight. So we asked focus group participants the same questions: health issues, barriers to care, lived experiences, and which populations they feel deserve more focus. What stood out again and again was the reoccurring theme, like almost a strong call out for connection and community. And yes, there are clinical interventions, right? Like therapy and medication and other tools that support mental health, right? And yes, there are systemic barriers that we talked about that we can't fully control, like the cost of living, cost of care, and the broader social and political environment. But if there's one thing that the LGBTQ plus community is telling us very loudly and clearly, it's that they know what they need and they need each other and they need spaces to connect and to feel a sense of belonging. The older adults also shared a very heartbreaking experience of family relationships that have weakened over time or never existed in the first place because of their identity. They spoke of a deep lingering worry about who is going to take care of me. Many feel isolated and they face discrimination within the homes that they're currently living in, and not only for being LGBTQ plus, but also for being older or for being disabled or for having some other identity within them that is being discriminated upon. And some even noted that there are few LGBTQ plus people in their age group, and that could be connected with because of the AIDS crisis, which robbed their generation of so many peers. They shared more day-to-day reflections as well, like the fact that there's no LGBTQ, not no, but little LGBTQ friendly spaces like restaurants or hangout spots, something that the younger generations have also pointed out. They talked about how senior centers often default to mixed social groups and how they wish there were more LGBTQ plus specific gatherings that they could be around. And in the end, I think what they were asking for, what they were talking about is simple, but also very powerful, that people are lonely and people need people, and LGBTQ plus need other LGBTQ plus people and allies. And this is where intergenerational connection has a potential to make a real difference by bringing together youth and elders and building community across different generations and different age gaps, and figuring out different ways to answer that call for belonging. So before I get into my project, I'm just going to go on another quick tangent just to zoom in on intergenerational connection. I think that it sometimes may be easy to overlook benefits of aging and the wisdom that truly only comes with lived experiences. I've done some research for this toolkit as well. And it's the research I'm seeing is that it is important to include people from different generations in LGBTQ plus social circles. I think it truly can enrich communities and just overall improve quality of life. Platonic intergenerational connections, especially within these queer communities, can be created with like intentional programming and intentional interventions that bring together older and younger generations. These interventions and programmings can be exciting in the sense that they allow for transmission of knowledge and skills and stories across generations. However, there are some factors that do contribute to a generational divide, right? Like socioeconomic and social and reduced social capital, breakdown of trust, widening gaps of social media use and digital literacy. But there are still ways that we can work past this. One example is the GLHA. We have an older adult subcommittee, and they took on an older adult and younger person storytelling seminar between Cambodian speaking people, older adults, and non-Cambodian speaking younger people. They shared cultural views, stories of war, societal differences, and history. And I think the history aspect is especially important in the queer community, where history and lived experience carry a lot of weight. Like, I know I can't see you guys right now, but the Stonewall Inn riots, right? I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with those, but if you are, it might surprise you that a lot of my peers in my queer circle didn't know about the Stonewall Inn riots. And how did I learn exactly about them? By talking to somebody in the community from an older generation, a generation older than mine. And to illustrate this a little bit further, many older LGBTQ adults have spent most of their lives with their identities being considered wrong or sinful or even criminal. Some generations came during the early gay rights movement or the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis, where in contrast, LGBTQ plus younger people are growing up with comparatively not the best, greater acceptance, right? They have rights, but they also have the fear of those rights being taken for them. They have greater support when coming out, although not perfect in any way, shape, or form, and we still have a long way to go, but comparatively different from current older populations. But with these differences, there's also similarities. Many in both age groups face bias, internalized heteronormativity, ageism, mental health struggles, loneliness, anxiety, fear of the uncontrollable. And when we bring all these differences, these gaps together in programs and interventions, something cool happens where we create this, I have this like pie diagram of growth and understanding and empowerment and community and connection. I'll talk about a couple examples that I did through this toolkit to foster intergenerational connection, but some other examples are just art workshops or oral history storytelling, advocacy projects, programs that share skills and resources, creating knowledge, active listening. And in doing all these programmings, we can empower both generations to also give back to their communities in meaningful ways. So my playbook, it has a lot to do. It basically, community and mental health lay the foundation of the toolkit, which is something that seems to be lacking by listening to LGBTQ plus people and what the data is telling us. So I think it was also important to talk a little bit about what community and mental health mean when you put them together. So as we know, communities can be places, experiences, geographical locations, or they can be more abstract, like beliefs and aspirations and attitudes and self-images and culture, demographics, so on and so forth. And someone can be involved as many or as little as they like. Let's just take, for example, like a hypothetical transgender woman, right? She attends a university. She lives in Westford or Chelmsford. She's part of a book club. She advocates for trans rights. She goes to the gym. She does spin classes. Each aspect of her is involved in different communities that bring together people like her. to share the similar identities with her. She gets a sense of belonging and security while in these different communities. She can collaborate with others. And a support system is so important for the LGBTQ plus people to see and understand that they're not alone in this world. And it enhances a individual's purpose, whether that purpose is discussing a favorite book, fighting for rights, turning a city into a home. Just knowing you have a place in this world is a great way to positively affect mental health and wellness. And like we have discussed, queer people have a very strong desire for community, but for some reason, from all age groups, there's a lack. So what do we do? So I asked myself back in, when was it? February? I think it was February. How am I going to use the mission of the Greater Lowell Health Alliance to create something for the LGBTQ plus population? And so the mission of the GLHA is to sustain a strategic partnerships. You can't see me, but I'm doing the quote unquotes, strategic partnership of organizations. So why not make the mission of Pride Month to sustain a strategic partnership of queer people, right? And I know it's towards the end of June, but the hope of this toolkit is that we can take the buffet of activities and options and ideas from this toolkit and apply it into different months. So this toolkit is about utilizing Pride Month as a mental health and community building intervention, with the idea in mind that, like I said, each chapter can be used outside of Pride Month as well. And there's no one right way to plan Pride. I got all this information from as the GLHA was planning Pride. I talked to LGBTQ liaisons from the community, different affirming care centers in the community. And what I really grasped from it was that every Pride event should be, unique to the community it serves, keeping in mind with the different racial and ethnic backgrounds. Like Lowell, for example, it's a majority minority city. So there's a lot of different marginalized, intersected people who attend the Pride event. So we want to make it accessible for everybody. Thinking about language access, thinking about cultural competence, accommodations for people with disabilities, blind people, people with hearing loss, people who have hard time accessing community events, and of course, keeping Pride events safe. It can be challenging, especially in the current environment, to plan a Pride event, but there are ways that we can do it to boost mental health and community building. I think of kind of this toolkit as almost like a bunch of different puzzle pieces that I'm trying to put together to make something beautiful out of it. So the piloted activities came from a grant from Greater Lowell Community Foundation's LGBTQ plus grant, which those were all the grantee award winners. It was a great experience. I'm going to go into a couple chapters of the book, walk you guys through it, and then talk about some of these piloted activities. So, like I mentioned earlier, you would be very surprised by how many young people and people my age, I'm 22, don't know much about queer history. And that really struck me, and it felt like it was important to do some research of my own and share what I learned in the toolkit, because queer history holds a lot of power. For example, stories like the Stonewall Inn Uprising aren't just important events, they're reminders of community and courage and resilience. And what I think about when we are today, especially with the uncertainty and fear many have felt around rights, it really does hit home. Like, I remember talking to one of our task forces back in January, and there's a lot of talk about the fear and anxiety that LGBTQ plus people are having. And I kept asking myself, how did people express themselves and support each other during times when queer identities were illegal? Like, what tools did they use? How can we learn from that in case we ever find ourselves needing those strategies again? Which I think is why knowledge becomes so essential, and it connects us to people who came before us, and also helps us imagine a future where everything's possible, especially when things feel uncertain. And in a later chapter, I'll walk you guys through some of the interesting historical techniques people use to maintain a safe queer environment. But with the preface in mind that my goal this year was to make Pride be a mental health almost sort of intervention, I thought it was necessary to include some of the data that I shared with you guys about LGBTQ plus mental health. I also thought it was important to bring up the fact that mental health challenges affect people differently, and identifying as LGBTQ plus is a part of someone and not a mental illness. And the identity is something beautiful and empowering, and it can make people more vulnerable to mental health issues, but it is not a mental health issue in itself. And I think it was also important to just bring up for the general population, if someone was reading this who wasn't a part of the community, how mental health can root from fear and shame and discrimination. And for people who hold multiple marginalized identities, like disabled people or older adults or people of color, the risks can be even greater. And this is where I go into how Pride can truly bring together so many different types of people, from younger people to older people, providing different opportunities for intergenerational connections and mentorships, where young people and individuals are given a chance to almost find a mentor or a role model during Pride festivals and events in Pride Month, and where older adults can also learn from young people. It's a great opportunity to emphasize learning and what resources are available to people and connect specific organizations together and share information they learned. And a later slide, I'll talk about a way to use vendor tables as a way to boost mental health and share information. I think that was also, basically there were 4 pillars of the puzzle pieces, like generational connections, support system, sharing diverse perspectives, and intergenerational, information sharing. Because during Pride Month, people are given a big opportunity to truly expand their horizons. For example, in the focus group, there was gay men were having a lot of issues with lesbian women, which was kind of surprising. But Pride Month gives people a chance to expand their horizons. So different people that fall under the LGBTQIA umbrella can also step in somebody else's shoes and understand their perspective and expand their mental horizons. But I know we talked about some safety techniques earlier, or we talked about me potentially mentioning them in future slides. So I thought it was important to bring up what people use throughout history to maintain safe spaces and safe pride, because many LGBTQ plus people often live in different states of fight or flight, which I'm sure, as we know, as professionals, stress response is triggered when you're in that constant state of fight or flight. And if someone stays in that stress state for so long, it can lead to chronic stress, chronic mental illness, which eventually can even affect their entire physical health as well. So looking back in history, people have used some very interesting ways to prioritize safety and still have a social circle with the given environment. And for example, people use underground networks like queer-friendly spaces like bookstores or community centers or restaurants. For example, like the Stonewall Inn, they used a bar as a safe space and just well-known trusted spots. And another fear that came up was, how do we market, like if the environment comes where we have to be discreet and safe, how can we still market these events and let the LGBTQ plus community know that these events are going on? And there's different ways to have discreet marketing. Like, for example, throughout history, people have used things like zines, which are basically flyers with coded language on them and different symbols that they would leave around town, where people in the LGBTQ plus community would see the symbol, see the coded language, and know exactly what was going on, what group it was, etc. And I thought it was also in the sense of community to talk about trusted networks. I believe I read something about how there was one group who would keep a book about, like, with names to create a trusted network and to know who was in their social circle that they could trust. And then there's also silent nods, like a pride flag, or for example, I think in 1900 something, the Daughters of Bilitis, I believed, created almost a pin or a symbol that they would wear to let other people know that they are part of the community while maintaining safety. Another cool piece of this toolkit was engaging local businesses. This toolkit helped me create a small cohort of 4 to 5 local businesses who completed this checklist and also piloted a few programs. For example, we hosted a fun Pride teaser or Pride Eve event at, if you guys are familiar with downtown Lowell, it's called the Old Court. It's a little Irish pub, very queer friendly. We invited a queer DJ to play music. People came together and just kind of celebrated queer history, celebrated Pride Month. SLS Fitness hosted a Pride Spinathon to raise money for Greater Lowell Pride and also provide queer people with an affirming space to exercise and blow off some steam. And this Sunday, if anybody is interested, we are hosting a yoga event with Sutra Studio from 12 to 1 for Pride, not only to raise money, but also yoga has amazing mental and physical health benefits. And organizations like Dragonfly Cafe in Lowell, they sold rainbow acai bowls during June and rainbow drinks during Pride Month to not only raise money, but also bring awareness to the LGBTQ plus population and let the community know that they're queer friendly. So each business followed this checklist, implemented some programming, fundraising opportunities for Lowell Pride. And when I just picture myself or another queer person walking down the street and looking into these businesses and seeing the flags and the flyers and the events and just feeling that sense of belonging in that community and how engaging local businesses is just such a small but powerful gesture. And from a mental health perspective, I feel like when you openly show that you are an ally, you create the visibility and the awareness, and you help the community feel seen and supported. And that simple act of recognition can boost mental health, whether by creating connection, just brightening someone's day with a smile. But some of the activities that we implemented, it's just some background. I think it's very important for the queer community to know what resources are out there for them, especially with the focus groups and the data is telling us that people are afraid to access care and they have low capacity to care seek, whether that's from fear of being stigmatized or discriminated against, or they just simply find navigating the healthcare system difficult. And I think prioritizing and engaging local resources during Pride Month can help build stronger, more lasting relationships between an individual and an organization. And it truly is it's a win-win for both the organization and the person, because sometimes people need to hear something once, twice, 3 times before they not only remember it, but feel ready to use it. And I implemented the Mindful Hunt, which was basically a resource vendor table scavenger hunt. Just a very simple tool who about 30 attendees from Pride joined into the game. And they went on a scavenger hunt, very simple, open to all ages, to specific mental health resource tables, which you can see the organizations that participated in it. But the best part about it is that not only did they receive a prize, but they literally walked away with contact information for each and every single one of these organizations. And yes, they could have went and Googled it, but now they have that face-to-face connection and that fear and that scared feeling of accessing care to these substance use organizations, health organizations, housing resources. That fear might be taken away because they made that connection. And the resource vendor tables also had the opportunity to educate these people and connect and build relationships where these people could then go to their friends and share this resource with them. So this is just a little blurb of some of the buffet of the activities that I researched, looked up, talked to other people about. And the best part about, I think, these activities is that they're very cost effective. It didn't cost much of anything to host the 3 activities that I did at Pride. They're low barrier for all age groups. Anybody can access them, older adults, younger adults, and it's designed to celebrate, but also to create these meaningful connections with people. And it's also safe. It prioritizes mental health, whether it's the workshops or the scavenger hunt. We did a bingo. We did some pen pal programs that I'll actually talk to you guys about later as well. But basically, this toolkit, these activities were used as a flexible guide, if you will. I'm using the quotations again for those who can't see me, but where people could pick and choose what fits your community's unique needs and culture. And I can picture this toolkit in a perfect world going to a very rural space or a rural state where they don't hold a Pride festival, and the local hero could see this toolkit and figure out ways that they could meaningfully celebrate Pride Month. So another, again, super simple but super powerful program that we did at Pride this year was Community Building Bingo. This one hit off even more so than the scavenger hunt. Basically, attendees could come, take the bingo card, however many bingos they crossed off, they got a prize. But if you look at each bingo sheet, each activity, each one is with a sense of creating a community. For example, creating a trusted network contact list, introducing yourself to somebody else, exchanging stories with a senior citizen, introducing yourself to a stranger, asking questions, thanking Pride volunteers, learning a fun fact about history, supporting LGBTQ-owned businesses. This one was a hit. And I think that it was really fun to also pair strangers up together to complete the bingo card together. And obviously, I can't see the ripple effect that happened, but it's hopeful that there was a ripple effect that did happen during Pride Month with this bingo sheet. And one of the other programs that we did that really hit off a lot better than I was expecting is the older adult and youth pen pal program, which really ties back into the intergenerational connection that I was talking about earlier. This program, basically at Pride itself, we had a take a letter, leave a letter initiative where younger people wrote letters with these prompts to an older adult, a stranger, and then an older adult would come, take the letter, leave a letter, same thing with young people. And then afterwards, we had about a 20-30 person sign-up sheet at Lowell Pride, and we'll be having a summer Pride pen pal program between pairing a young adult up to an older adult, fully platonic. But this is just one of those ways that can create mentorship, meaningful connections, information sharing, empowerment, and just somebody to talk to. So that was also a great hit, and there was prizes, of course. And the last thing that I will chat about before I open it up to questions and to open up the floor just to hear you guys' insight is the new All Are Welcome initiative. We have not driven this into the community yet. We're going to pilot it with the current cohort of businesses that we have. But basically, I created this toolkit here. It's separate of the Pride Playbook, but to create and acknowledge, again, safe spaces in the community, just a step further than the Pride Certified Business Program. Building affirming spaces has truly never felt more important than it is today, and I think it's critical for the well-being of the people in the LGBTQ plus community. Like, picture somebody going to a plumber or an auto shop and seeing that they have gender-neutral bathrooms and a pride flag hanging up. A queer person is going to feel so much more safe, so much less fear going to this business. And many people in the queer community face physiological and physical barriers that prevent them from finding safe and affirming places to shop, eat, play, get their car worked on, and experience. And the goal of this toolkit is to just eliminate those barriers. So basically, there's an employer checklist and a business checklist where we'll go into the business and we'll audit them. We'll have a constant evaluation going, making sure that they're following up with guidelines. We partnered with Frontline Services, a man named Matthew Page Shelton. He's awesome. He helped make this idea come to life. So that was pretty much the Pride Playbook in a very long story short means, but I would love to hear your guys' insight, maybe even some of the work that you do at Nonotuck for the LGBTQ plus community. I wish my camera was working, but I can stop sharing unless there's other slides that you guys wanted me to go to. but I would love to open up the floor for some questions. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Your presentation. Have you compared those to national statistics? Like, is there something distinctive about the Lowell area?
The Lowell area, I would say that nationally it is similar. There is a section in the toolkit about data specific to, like, for example, from the Trevor Project or the National Alliance of Mental Illness, where in their case, youth are getting a lot more data sets than older adults are specifically. But I went to a seminar yesterday about caring for LGBTQ older adult people, and obviously the older population is going to continue growing, right? Whether it's straight people or queer people, but the queer people, older adults, are predicted to grow by like some large percentage within the next few years. And the youth data as well is reflective of the Lowell community. I think that Lowell is a very safe city to be in. So if you look at nationally data in other areas, it might look a little bit worse, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. With the data I was looking at, I was noticing that we did seem that there was an increase in like family acceptance this year as compared to previously. I know a lot of like queer communities have a lot of like found family aspects, and I wonder if that sort of is helping in that front, or if you're just seeing that like people's families are just being more accepting these days, and if you could speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, we're seeing that. So there's a lot of youth queer people that I know you mentioned chosen family that define their family based off of their friend group and their social circles if they don't live in an affirming home. The way that I compared older adults to younger people, it's more so the fact that there may not have been as many people coming out in older generations because of, like not having many rights compared to now where younger generations, they can come out to their family. And the data we collected a lot of the LGBTQ plus data back in June, where we're back in basically a year ago from today. And that data did tell us that they are feeling accepted within their family and their friend groups. It's hard to know if their family is their chosen family or their actual from birth family. But with older adults, the issue is that they grew up in a time where LGBTQ wasn't accepted. So they may not have a partner, they may not have a spouse, they may have some sort of burned bridges with their family that prevents them from having those open and safe family ties where they're feeling alone and they're feeling that question of who's going to take care of me. But the data did tell us that only 10% of people think that their or less than 10% of their, sorry, yeah. Less than 10% said that their connections with their family was a lot worse. So the data is telling us that there's social support, right? But the focus groups are saying something a little bit different. And the focus groups are more recent, if that makes sense, if I'm telling that story.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, awesome.
Thanks again for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Awesome. And if you guys are interested in taking a deeper look at the playbook itself, I can email a copy to you, Josh, and I have some actual hard copies as well.
Yeah, that would be great. If there's a link for it online too, you could throw it in the chat right now.
Yeah. Perfect. Let me stop sharing. So let me head back. I'll pull up that link. Yes, I see the chat. Old Court is an iconic place for Lowell. GLHA Pride. I'm just grabbing that link now.
While you're grabbing that link, I had a question about the Pen Pal program.
Yes.
It seems like that's a fairly recent implementation, but
Yes.
do you have any anecdotal success stories from it yet?
We have one. And when I say success right now, basically I sent out the list, and right now people are currently writing the first letter to the GLHA office, and then I will then send that letter out to their pen pal. Right now, the only success story is one person, or I think like one or two people have sent their letter to me, and then I sent their letter out to somebody else. But at Pride itself, I think we gave and receive away around like 50 take a letter, leave a letters. So in person, it had a lot better success, but I'm still hopeful that within the summer months, those letters will be getting to me. But I'll definitely keep you guys updated. And we're connecting with like other organizations such as like Age Span and some senior citizen homes to get more older adults involved as well.
Great. Thank you. Looks like
course.
George has his hand up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hi Ella. That was a really great presentation. I really appreciate it. It's really good. This playbook is remarkable. And I've never seen one like it, whether or not it's addressing a subject that you brought to us today or other subjects. Is something like this being duplicated in other parts of Massachusetts or around the country at all?
I have not seen anything like this in other parts of Massachusetts or other parts of the country. There could be something that is low surface that doesn't have a lot of public attention, but I have not seen anything like this in my research because obviously in public health, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? We want to build off of something that already exists. And when I was doing some digging, I didn't really see much of anything like this, which is why it was very inspiring to put all of this together. But thank you so much for those kind words.
You're welcome. Well deserved.
Thank you. Awesome, but I can also, yeah.
I just had one more question. Sort of to give you some context about us, we're an organization, a nonprofit that provides services for people with disabilities. We're statewide, and we serve and we serve a diverse group of people, and we employ a diverse group of people. So do you have any just sort of quick recommendations for us beyond what was in the presentation? I mean, obviously you might need a little bit further context and dig deeper about us, but sort of based on the description I just provided, do you have any feedback?
Yeah, I think that across all levels, across all populations of people who are LGBTQ+, I truly think that the biggest, like I said, the biggest theme we're seeing is that the fact that there is a lack of spaces. And I was talking to somebody who they were from an older adult organization, but with like they specifically were programming for disabled older adults. And they said that at first, when they were trying to create spaces for the queer community, people weren't showing up at first, but they kept creating those spaces. They kept letting the community know that they have those spaces, and eventually one person came. There was almost like it's almost like this friend group sent one brave soul to this space. It was a support group to test it out, see if it was queer friendly, and then reported back to their friend group and then brought a bunch of friends with them to this space. So I think that my recommendation for you guys is if you don't already have queer spaces, to definitely just start small and build it up from there. And then eventually, hopefully, you get some sort of queer following. And you can even implement some of the activities that I have in that toolkit. It's not just for Pride Month. There's different activities in there that bring together community and help mental health in ways that are holistic and not your kind of like therapeutic intervention, if that makes sense. So I would say continue creating the spaces and don't let the fear of creating those spaces take away the fact that those spaces exist. Like keep making them and people will show up. If that helps at all. But I would love to do some more digging into, I can even maybe do some more research on what it is, what disabled LGBTQ plus data is telling us as well. And we can also, we might be able to, we're in the process with our community health needs assessment where we can create customized data sets for specific populations, and we might be able to cross-reference disabled data with LGBTQ plus data once the report is published in the fall.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. But I will leave my contact information in the chat if anybody would like to connect about LGBTQ plus interventions or initiatives.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, can I just ask one question? Josh, hi Ella, how are you? I think your presentation was awesome. And thank you for coming today to join us. Could you just let us know exactly what would be kind of like your ideal or idea for collaborations with organizations or schools or health communities? If you could see that happening, what would be an ideal collaboration and what would it look like for you?
Yeah, I think that so with schools, just from what I hear, so Greater Lowell Health Alliance, we bring a bunch of community people together to join task forces, and just something that I hear about collaborating with schools is that there's a lot of red tape that one has to cross to be able to collaborate with the school. But there is still ways to do it. You get that one local hero who defies the red tape and defies expectations and is able to help out. But I think my recommendation is to seek out those affirming organizations. Like, for example, there is a place in Lowell called Pathway to Better Health, which is basically a affirming care center. They do like gender affirming care and lots of LGBTQ plus care. And I think connecting with organizations like those, there's also an LGBTQ liaison at the Lowell Police Department named Dawn Buchesne, and she is an awesome resource as well. In the toolkit we're doing like a second draft of the toolkit where we're going to include like an LGBTQ plus resource guide specifically, which is hopefully going to create basically a directory of all the LGBTQ businesses in Lowell and all the LGBTQ organizations who serve queer people. So it would also be good to refer to that. But I think my advice is to start with the places that you know serve LGBTQ plus people, because then they already have this network that you can add onto your network. And there is definitely a web of LGBTQ plus organizations within Greater Lowell and even the broader Merrimack Valley. I think it's just a matter of connecting with the right one first. For example, if like anybody is interested in coming to one of our task force meetings, we have a health equity task force, which does a lot of work for the LGBTQ community. But I would recommend planning on starting maybe with one or two organizations that you know as LGBTQ serving or affirming, and they'll definitely have a broader web of organizations. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Of course.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. It was really thorough and informative, and I appreciate it. I think we all learned something new today. And yeah, unless you have anything else to add, anything you want to plug or anything, I think we can go offline.
Yeah, I think that's it from me. But thank you so much for hearing me out and creating conversation about this. And thanks, Josh, for reaching out to Carrie.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, thank you again. And
Great.
I'll be in touch with you afterwards just to let you know, because we're probably going to do an article. I mean, I'm sure we're going to do an article about this
Sweet.
for our website. So I will be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, make sure you check out the chat because a lot of people are saying thank you
Oh,
as well.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You're so very welcome, everybody.